The room was quiet, but the silence was deafening. I sank into the worn couch, fingers tracing the empty glass in my hand, feeling the faint coolness where my lips had lingered moments before. I'd been here before countless times, lost in a fog of numbness and regret, searching for something to fill the aching void. I could still taste the bitterness, and it seemed to cling to me as if it had seeped into my skin. I closed my eyes and remembered the weight of that cold metal against my temple, how close I'd come to surrendering to the darkness. It wasn't the first time, and God forbid, it might not be the last. But something held me back that day, a whisper of doubt, a hand pulling me back from the edge, urging me to fight one more time. Now a year sober, I still felt that shadow hovering, lurking just beyond the corner of my vision. Some nights I dreamed I hadn't stopped, that I'd let go, and I'd wake up with my heart racing, reaching out for a hand that wasn't there. I spent most of my 20s with a drink in my hand, trapped in a cycle of despair and denial. Alcohol can feel like a friend at first, but it wasn't long before I found myself isolated, staring into the shadows that filled the corners of my mind, haunted by the what-ifs. One empty afternoon, alone in the quiet of my apartment, I reached for my handgun. I wasn't planning anything. I told myself that anyway, but I began toying with it, absent-mindedly wondering if a simple pull of the trigger could end the ache gnawing inside me. My hands were steady, but my heart pounded, torn between a strange fascination and a sudden surge of fear. I thought about my friends who'd taken that final step, convinced they found peace, and I wondered if that would ever be me. I popped the magazine out, satisfied it was empty, and held the cold metal against my temple, just to feel it there. My finger brushed the trigger, and at that moment, a gut instinct like a flash of lightning told me to check the chamber. My heart skipped. I couldn't breathe. There was a bullet nestled there, waiting. I dropped the gun and stumbled back, the gravity of what I'd almost done crashing over me. I realized that I didn't want to die. I wanted to escape. That was over a year ago, and I'm sober now, taking each day as it comes. I don't talk about that day, not with anyone. It lingers like a bruise on my soul, a reminder of just how close I came to the edge. Today, I'm grateful I didn't cross it. I believe it was something greater than me that pulled me back. I'm not the same person I was then, but I carry the memory, a reminder of what I've survived and a testament to the will I never knew I had. Life after that day was anything but simple. I'd stare at the empty bottles littering my apartment, the remnants of a life I no longer wanted to live. The days were heavy, each one pressing down on me with a weight I'd never known before. I sought help, reluctantly at first, clinging to the belief that I could handle it on my own. But there was a part of me that knew, deep down, that I was sinking. Rehab was a world I didn't understand, a place where strangers became confessions, and every session felt like peeling back layers of scar tissue, forcing me to face the ugliness I'd buried. I met people there with stories that mirrored mine, others whose pain cut deeper than I could comprehend, and in those shared moments, I felt a glimmer of something I hadn't felt in years. Connection. There I met Emma. She wasn't like the others. There was a fire in her, and determination that drew me in like a moth to a flame. She'd sit across from me during group sessions, eyes blazing with fierce resilience, and when she spoke, it was like she was pouring her soul into the room. She told her story unflinchingly, with a raw honesty that I couldn't look away from. She'd lost as she fought, and she'd clawed her way back. I was drawn to her strength, and her willingness to confront her demons head-on, and in time, I found myself opening up to her in ways I hadn't dared with anyone else. We became each other's anchors, holding on tightly through the storms that still haunted us. And in those quiet moments, when it was just the two of us, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, a spark of hope. As Emma and I grew closer, I found myself clinging to our conversations, those late nights where we'd share pieces of ourselves we kept hidden from the world. She had a way of seeing through my defenses, calling me out when I tried to bury my pain behind half-hearted jokes. She'd listen with this unwavering attention, as if every word I said mattered, as if I mattered. And maybe for the first time in my life, I began to believe it. Our shared nights became a lifeline, each one bringing a little more light into the darkness that had once consumed me. But as we moved forward together, I sensed a shadow lurking, something in her past she hadn't yet faced. One evening, while sitting on the edge of a cracked leather sofa in a dingy coffee shop, I dared to ask. She looked away, her eyes flickering with a mix of fear and resolve, and told me about the choices she'd made, the ghosts that still lingered, and the mistakes she carried like chains. It was the first time I saw her vulnerable, and in that moment, I realized just how fragile we both were. Her pain mirrored mine in ways I hadn't expected, and I knew that if we were going to make it through, we'd have to confront those demons together. The more I learned about her, the more I understood my struggles and began to see our connection as something more than just comfort. It was a chance at redemption. Together, we made a promise, a pact to lift each other, no matter how deep we sank. We weren't perfect, but we were determined. In Emma, I found a reason to stay sober, to keep fighting even on the days when the memories surged back like waves crashing against the shore. She became my compass, the steady presence that kept me grounded, and for the first time in years, I dared to imagine a future. A life not defined by my past, but by the choices I was making here and now. In the months that followed, Emma and I built a routine, piecing together a life from the remnants of our shattered pasts. We started small, meeting for coffee, attending group therapy sessions together, and finding solace in the simple act of just being there for one another. The city seemed different with her by my side, less lonely, more forgiving. We walked through the streets, our conversations meandering through memories and dreams, sharing the bits of ourselves that we were finally ready to let go of or embrace. But healing wasn't a straight path. There were nights when the weight of it all felt crushing, and I'd see a flicker of the old darkness in Emma's eyes, a reminder that we were both still haunted by shadows we couldn't fully shake. One evening, we sat by the river, the night air thick with unspoken words. Emma was quieter than usual, her gaze lost in the water's slow, rhythmic movement. She confessed that she sometimes felt trapped by her mind, that despite the progress we made, there were moments she'd question if she'd ever truly be free. I took her hand, feeling the roughness of her fingers against mine, and told her that freedom wasn't a destination. It was a choice, one we had to make every day. We were broken, yes, but together, we were stronger than we'd ever been alone. That night, I realized that love wasn't about fixing each other. It was about standing side by side, even in the mess of it all, finding strength in our shared resolve. Days turned into weeks, and slowly we began to dream again. Emma talked about going back to school to study psychology so she could help others find their way. Her eyes would light up when she spoke of it, a spark of passion that gave me hope. And as for me, I started to believe that I could create a life worth living one step at a time. I took up painting, something I'd once loved but had left behind in my haze of self-destruction. The colors felt like a release, a way to pour out the emotions I couldn't put into words. Emma encouraged me, pushing me to believe in myself and to keep going. Together, we were learning to rebuild. It wasn't perfect, and there were still scars that would never fully fade. But we found something precious, a reason to keep moving forward, no matter how heavy the journey felt. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. As Emma and I carved out a new life, the world around us seemed to soften, and for the first time in years, I felt the gentle pull of hope. We find ourselves laughing over the smallest things, like the time we tried to cook together, only to set off the smoke alarm and end up eating takeout on the kitchen floor. Those moments of lightness felt like precious gifts, reminders that we were alive and allowed to feel joy again. They were small victories, but to us, they felt monumental. But life, I've come to learn, has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. One night, Emma received a call from her past, a friend who pulled her into the darkness she had worked so hard to escape. It was a voice that brought back memories she tried to bury, reopening old wounds with a single ring. She looked at me, fear flashing in her eyes as she struggled to decide whether to answer. I held her hand, a silent promise that she didn't have to face this alone. She took a deep breath and let it ring, choosing us, choosing the future we were trying to build together. That moment changed something between us. It became clear that we weren't just surviving, we were growing, transforming into people we'd barely recognized from our former lives. We started making plans, small at first. Emma would look into school applications, and I signed up for an art class, feeling a spark of excitement I hadn't known in years. We talked about moving into a small apartment together, somewhere with enough sunlight and space for me to paint and for Emma to study. The future felt like a fragile thing, but it was ours, and we were determined to protect it. But one evening, I could tell something was weighing on her. She sat on the couch, hands clasped tightly in her lap as if bracing herself. She finally looked at me, eyes filled with uncertainty, and confessed a truth she'd been carrying. She was scared. She feared that one day her past might come crashing back down, pulling her under, taking me with it. She didn't want to drag me into a storm she couldn't control. I sat beside her, pulling her into my arms, and told her that she didn't have to be afraid of losing me. I was here for the long haul, and no matter how many storms we faced, I wasn't going anywhere. I'd come to love her not just because she was strong, but because she was vulnerable, because she'd shown me that it was possible to keep fighting even when you felt you had nothing left. I realized then that our love was more than just a lifeline. It was a promise, a commitment to stay by each other's side, no matter what came our way. With that, we made a vow to confront whatever challenges lay ahead together, to keep choosing each other even on the hardest days. And as we sat there in the quiet, I knew that while our journey was far from over, we found something worth fighting for. We were no longer just two broken souls. We were a team bound by resilience and hope, ready to face whatever came next. In the months that followed, our lives began to take on a rhythm steady and comforting. We found a small apartment, just as we dreamed, with big windows that flooded the rooms with sunlight in the mornings. It wasn't much, but it was ours. I set up a makeshift studio in the corner of the living room, and Emma transformed a corner of the bedroom into her study nook, piling her books high as she prepared for the courses she'd enrolled in. There was a space filled with our dreams, and every piece of furniture, every wall, held a memory of our journey. We were finally building a life we could call our own. But with each step forward, life seemed to throw new obstacles our way, as if testing our resolve. One evening, Emma came home with tears in her eyes, carrying the weight of a particularly hard day. She'd run into someone from her past who reminded her of everything she'd left behind, reopening old wounds she thought had healed. She sat down heavily, staring at the floor, her hands trembling as she recounted the encounter. I knelt beside her, holding her hands in mine, grounding her in the present and the life we were fighting so hard to create. We spent that night talking, laying out all our fears and hopes, bearing our souls in a way we hadn't before. She shared stories from her past, things she kept hidden, scars that still hurt when she thought about them too long. I shared my fears, the moments of weakness that threatened my sobriety, and the nights when the weight of it all felt like too much. But in our vulnerability, we found strength, a reminder that we weren't facing our battles alone. We were standing side by side, stronger together than we'd ever been apart. As the weeks passed, Emma began to flourish. Her passion for helping others, for understanding the mind and all its complexities, grew into a fire that couldn't be dimmed. I watched her transform, shedding the shadows of her past like an old skin, embracing the person she was becoming. And in her growth, I found my purpose. My paintings, once a way to release the darkness inside me, became expressions of hope, reflections of the life we were building. My art began to tell our story, a journey of redemption and resilience, and people started to notice. One day, a local gallery reached out, interested in showcasing my work. It felt surreal, like a dream I hadn't allowed myself to dream. But with Emma's encouragement, I leaped. The night of the gallery opening, we stood side by side, surrounded by people who'd come to see the work that told our story. Emma's hand was warm in mine, and as I looked at her, I saw the same light in her eyes that had drawn me to her in the beginning. We'd come so far, but I knew this was only the beginning. We built a life from the ashes, and while our pasts would always be a part of us and no longer defined us, we were stronger now, bound by love and a shared determination to keep moving forward no matter what lay ahead. At that moment, surrounded by my paintings, by our story, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known before. We found something real, something worth fighting for, and as I looked at Emma, I knew we'd keep fighting together. No longer haunted by the past, we were free to dream of the future, a future filled with hope, love, and the strength to face whatever came next. We were more than survivors. We were creators, builders of a new life, hand in hand, ready for whatever came our way. In the years that followed, Emma and I became more than just partners. We became each other's family, our roots intertwined in ways we hadn't imagined possible. We created traditions that were uniquely ours, small rituals that grounded us and reminded us of how far we'd come. Every Sunday, we walked through the nearby park, rain or shine, breathing in the fresh air and talking about our dreams for the future. Emma would describe the ways she hoped to use her psychology degree to make a difference, to help people the way she had once needed help herself. I would share my ideas for new paintings inspired by the world around us, by the colors of autumn leaves, by the way the light filtered through the trees, casting shadows that felt like whispers of hope. My art became our livelihood, and with each painting I sold, I felt a growing sense of pride, not just in myself, but in the life we were building together. Emma's support was unwavering, her encouragement a steady presence that pushed me to reach further, to dream bigger. We began to save, talking about buying a small house where we could plant roots, a place with enough space for a garden and a studio, where the walls would carry the echoes of our laughter, the stories of our resilience. One winter evening, as snow fell quietly outside, Emma sat across from me at our small kitchen table, her eyes bright with a spark of excitement. She told me she'd been offered a position at a counseling center, a place where she could work directly with people fighting battles similar to the ones we had faced. She spoke with such passion that I felt a swell of pride knowing how far she had come, how much she had overcome. As I listened, I realized that our journey had become more than just survival. It had become a testament to the power of love, hope, and the choice to keep moving forward, even when the path was uncertain. But even as we built our new lives, we never forgot where we had started. There were moments when the darkness would still creep in, casting shadows that felt familiar yet distant. On those nights, when the memories became too heavy to bear alone, we'd sit together, hands entwined, grounding each other in the present. We'd remind ourselves of the promises we had made, the vows to stand by each other no matter what, to face each challenge together side by side. One spring, we finally found the house we'd been dreaming of, a cozy cottage with a sunlit porch and a garden that had been neglected but held so much potential. We spent weekends digging in the soil, planting flowers and vegetables, and watching as life began to bloom around us. Each plant, each petal, felt like a symbol of our growth, a reminder that even the most fragile seeds could blossom with a little care and patience. Our lives, once marked by struggle and survival, had transformed into something beautiful, something worth nurturing. We had become partners, friends, and soulmates bound by a shared history, by a love that had weathered the storms of our pasts and emerged stronger, more resilient. And as we looked out over our small garden, watching the sunset over our new home, I felt a peace that I had once thought impossible. We had found our place in the world, a life that was ours, and we knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together with open hearts and unbreakable resolve. As the seasons changed, so did we, growing into a life that felt more like a gift than a destination. The little house became a canvas for our dreams, a place where we could let our roots sink deep and our spirits soar. We painted the walls in warm, comforting hues, filling each room with pieces of our story. Emma's books lined every available shelf, and my paintings filled the walls, vibrant reminders of the life we had fought so hard to build. Each corner held a memory, a moment that spoke of our resilience and love. We continued our Sunday walks, wandering further into the woods and discovering hidden trails and quiet glades. Sometimes we'd pause, listening to the soft rustle of leaves, feeling the weight of the world fall away. There was a deep comfort in those moments of silence, a quiet acknowledgement that we had found our way back to ourselves and to each other. We'd sit on a fallen log hand in hand and talk about the future, children, perhaps, and the kind of home we wanted to build for them. I'd watch the way her eyes lit up when she spoke of the family we might one day create. And I knew then that I was home. Emma's work at the counseling center became her calling, a purpose she embraced with an unwavering dedication. She poured herself into helping others, guiding them through the darkness with a compassion that came from her own experiences. She'd come home with stories of hope and healing, her heart full of the lives she was helping to change. Watching her thrive, I felt a pride I couldn't put into words. She was a beacon of strength and kindness, a light that touched everyone she met. And as she grew, so did I, finding new inspiration in her courage and new colors in the world we shared. One evening, as we sat on the porch, a gentle rain began to fall, filling the air with the fresh scent of earth and new beginnings. We watched as the rain soaked the garden we had planted, drops of water dancing on the petals, nurturing the life we had tended with such care. I reached for Emma's hand, feeling the warmth of her fingers entwined with mine, and at that moment, I knew we had found something rare and precious. A love that had been forged in the fires of our past, a bond that had grown stronger with every challenge we had faced. We stayed there, wrapped in each other's arms, listening to the rhythm of the rain and the quiet beating of our hearts. The world around us faded, leaving only the gentle hush of the night and the certainty that we were exactly where we were meant to be. I looked at her, my partner, my best friend, the love of my life, and I felt an overwhelming gratitude for the journey that had brought us here. We had come from the darkness, from a place of despair and brokenness, and together we had created a life filled with light and hope. As the rain fell, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we would face it together, hand in hand, grounded in the love that had carried us through. Our story was still unfolding, a beautiful, imperfect journey that was uniquely ours. As we sat there in the quiet embrace of our little home, I felt a peace that ran deeper than words, a sense of belonging that I had spent a lifetime searching for. We were home. As time passed, our lives continued to intertwine in ways I had never imagined. Emma and I created a life filled with small, meaningful rituals. Morning cup of coffee shared in quiet companionship, an evening stroll under a sky painted with fading light, and conversations that stretched into the night, touching on dreams and fears alike. Each day was a testament to how far we had come, and with each new chapter, we felt the bonds between us grow deeper, unbreakable. One crisp autumn afternoon, we received news that would change everything. Emma came to me, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and joy, and told me she was pregnant. At that moment, the world seemed to stop, the air charged with the weight of something sacred and beautiful. We held each other, our hearts racing with the excitement of this new beginning, this new life we would nurture and protect. I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, knowing that the darkness we had once endured had brought us to this moment, to this future we were about to create. The months that followed were filled with anticipation and preparations. We painted a nursery in soft colors, choosing delicate patterns and gentle hues, crafting a space that would be a haven of love and warmth. Our little home, once a quiet sanctuary for two, now echoed with the promise of laughter and tiny footsteps, of bedtime stories and whispered dreams. We filled the shelves with books, imagining the day we would read to our children, sharing with them the stories that had carried us through. And then on a snowy winter night, our daughter was born. She was small, fragile, a perfect bundle of life, and as I held her for the first time, I felt a surge of love so profound it left me breathless. I looked at Emma, tears of joy shining in her eyes, and I knew that our journey had brought us here to this beautiful, unexpected moment. We'd found our way out of the shadows and into the light, and now with our daughter in our arms, we were ready to embrace the future. Our lives became a tapestry woven with laughter and love, with challenges and triumphs. We watched our daughter grow, each day a reminder of the resilience and hope that had carried us through. We taught her about kindness, about strength, about the beauty of a life built on love and understanding. And in the quiet moments when Emma and I would sit together, watching our daughter play, we'd share a glance that spoke of everything we'd endured, of the gratitude we felt for this life we had built together. Years passed, and our home became a place of memories, filled with the echoes of laughter, the warmth of family, and the gentle reminders of our journey. We grew older, our love deepening with each shared experience and each challenge we faced together. The world around us changed, but the bond between us remained steadfast, a constant source of comfort and joy. As I look back now, I am filled with quiet peace, a sense of fulfillment that comes from a life well lived, a journey well traveled. We had come from a place of darkness, from moments of despair, and together we had created a life filled with light, love, and meaning. Our story, once marked by struggle and pain, had transformed into a testament to resilience, to hope, to the power of love to heal and rebuild. And as I sit here, watching the sunset over our little garden, I feel profound gratitude for the path that brought us here, to this moment of quiet contentment. We had found our way home, and in each other we had found everything we had ever needed. Our story was a simple one, but it was ours, filled with the beauty of a life shared, a love that had weathered every storm, and a future that even now feels filled with promise. In the end, I realized that life is not about the darkness we face, but about the light we create along the way. We had found our light, our love, and in that we had found everything. Our story may end here, but the love we built, the life we created, will live on in the hearts of those we hold dear, a legacy of resilience, of hope, and of a love that transcends time.